Good morning. We're going to talk about finishing. So I did a short earlier and I said, hey, I'll kind of go into a little bit more depth and show you all the processes. I started 3 days ago and it's just about done. The first day what I did was, it was in the evening and I like stuff to dry overnight, and the first coat of poly on this, which is what I'm using, is polyurethane. I wanted to dry overnight. So that evening I made sure that I power sanded everything. Then I hand sanded. I think hand sanding is really, really important. That allows you to kind of feel with your hands how it's going and stuff. The power is great, gets a bunch done in a short amount of time, but it really can't give you the sensation and understanding if you've gotten everything like little areas and stuff like that. So a thorough hand sanding. After it's been sanded, then I use a vacuum. You can use a tack cloth if that's what you want to use. I think a vacuum works just great. So I use my shop vac and vacuum the whole thing. And I sanded the inside and outside everything. So after I've got that on there, then I'm going to put finish on it. So now the finish I'm using is, it's fast drying wipe-on polyurethane. This one is from Minwax, and it works great. This one is clear satin, where it's never going to be a real high shine, which is not what I'm looking for. But it's going to have a nice sheen to it, a satin sheen, and I like that kind of a coating. So I put that on with on all surfaces, and I'm just using a t-shirt. T-shirts are great; they're readily available. You know, all shirts end up in the shop for rags eventually. It's not going to snag stuff. I think I already said that. I put it on everything because when you're finishing, it's really important not to just put finish on the visible surfaces. A piece of wood, and this is solid wood, this is not plywood. Plywood's a little bit different. But on solid wood, it acts like a little bit of a sponge. This is a sanding sponge. And what'll happen is if it's in dry climate, you know, there's not a lot of humidity, the wood will kind of constrict, it'll contract itself, it'll shrink a little bit, you know, because the moisture goes out of it. If it should then get to summertime and the humidity goes higher, then the wood wants to expand again. You know, the humidity gets into the wood because the wood is a breathing thing. Even when it's cut down, it's a breathing thing. Then it'll swell up. Well, if I only have, you know, finish on this side and not on the inside, what can happen is that differential of this side to absorb moisture in the air and this side to absorb a lot more moisture in the air, this side will want to expand, and that'll make it either buckle or warp. That's just what happens. So that's something to kind of consider. I'm not going to do all the finishing steps that I'm doing in the outside to the inside, but I am going to put polyurethane on the whole thing when I do these polyurethane steps. Okay, so we've put that polyurethane all over the thing, and then I let it go overnight. The reason, for the first step I like to do overnight is there's a difference between dry and hardened. Initially, it says it'll dry in, 2 to 3 hours. I go 3 to 4 hours just to make sure, And so after 3 to 4 hours of drying, it's drying. You can work with it, and we do on the second day. But if I let it go overnight, it's going to be a little bit more cured, a little bit more hardened. And that's what I want for that first coat. Okay, so it's that morning. It's time to do a scratch sanding. And what I use for that is this sanding sponge. It's 150 grit. I just kind of do 150 grit all the way through. And works great for the kind of finish that I'm looking for. And so I'll take this and kind of with the grain, I'm just doing a scratch sanding. Now, polyurethane isn't going to really raise grain like a water-based or a water kind of liquid finish will, because if you put that on wood, remember the whole thing about it swelling? Well, that happens on the surface too if you use a water-based stain, so that, or a water-based finish. So that can happen, so you have to sand it down, there's a lot. This doesn't really happen so much, but you do get particulate from the air. And you want to take care of that. So that's what this is. I'm sanding, I'm getting all the areas. I'm not really going too hard. I'm trying to smooth it out and get rid of any irregularities not, you know, flatten the wood, I guess. Okay, so at this point I'm working more on the polyurethane than I am on the wood. Okay, so I do that scratch sanding, and once that scratch sanding is done over the outside primarily, anything you can touch, legs here, underneath here, not necessarily inside here. Then I'll do another coat of the, vacuum it, sorry, I forgot, vacuum it, and then do another coat of polyurethane. So yesterday, that's what I did. I did that 3 full times. So including the pardon me, the one that I did overnight, that's 4 coats of polyurethane yesterday. And it was just the same process. Once it was dry, I would do the scratch sand, just get everything kind of nicely sanded down, the whole thing, anywhere you're going to touch. Then I would vacuum it, and then I would put the polyurethane on with a rag, you know, and then let it dry. And then repeat that. So 1 polyurethane coat on the first day, 3 yesterday, and then this morning what I did was the very first thing is my scratch sand again, but this time I don't vacuum it. So I take mineral spirits with a rag, and then I wipe all of the sanding away from the scratch sanding. And that's different. You know, before we would just vacuum it. So by just vacuuming before, what it was doing is it was picking up most of the stuff on the surface, right? And even stuff in the cracks, but it wasn't getting everything by vacuuming, right? It would leave a little bit. So after 3 cycles of that, there's a little bit of buildup in these little corners, which is great. It's kind of almost like a very micro filler, and it looks really good, and everything's nice and smooth. But what I'm doing by using the mineral spirits is I'm wiping away the dust to get any kind of a chunk, or, you know, I don't want big globs of this sanded stuff in there, so that's what this does. Being mineral spirits, which is a cleaning additive for this, or a thinner for this, what it'll do also is it melts a little bit of that, and it kind of polishes up the surface by the wipe down. So after I've wiped it down with that, it needs to dry, and now I'm going to do one last polyurethane, but this time I'm not going to use the rag to apply it. I'm using this to apply it. This is the 3M, you know, you've seen the Scotch-Brite, you know, the green 3M. Well, this one is white, same kind of material, but it's just not as abrasive. This abrasiveness is really at this level, which is the 4/0 or 40 fines, the super fine steel wool that you can buy, and we'll use that next. But in the plastic form, and that's why I like to use it. So what I'm going to do here is I dip this in here, and now I'm going to go over that polyurethane with polyurethane. And the polyurethane I'm using, again, it's a little bit of a reactivator, but it's more of a lubricant for this, so it slides over the top, and I'm just really lightly just going over the surface, the whole thing, everywhere you're going to touch. Up here, I'm in here, and I'm taking my time, and this is with polyurethane again, everywhere. Once that's done, I'm not going to just leave it to dry. There may be particulate. Again, at this point, I'm trying to really work on that smoothing of the surface. So now I'm going to wipe it away again. So I've got another t-shirt over there. It's hanging over a sawhorse, so it dries. But I use that, I wipe the whole thing down one more time, okay? So now by doing that, I haven't removed any of the polyurethane. I haven't. I've got enough coats on there, 5 at this point, that there's enough of a base that I'm just working with trying to get this as smooth as possibly can, the polyurethane. So the last step, this is where I am now actually, is wax. I'm going to move these out of the way. With the wax, what I use is, this is Blitz, but I mean you could use any, it's a Carnauba car wax. And what I'm going to use is that 4/0 steel wool, and I'm going to use that just like I used the white 3M pad when I was using the polyurethane. But I'm using with the steel wool now, and I'm going in those circles again to get that in. Now this will abrade that surface, but anything that I put in there, I'm leaving wax. So it just works out really, really nice. So I do this over everything again, and then buff it out. Now this takes a while. There are big globs of you know, wax on here and stuff, and so you need to make sure you get all that wax off. And when you're doing that, I mean, you know, I'm going here with my fingernails into the little kind of, you know, corners and stuff like that, and the trim all over it to get that wax out, because it's in there, and you want to get it all out. Then you buff it. Just take another shirt and then buff the whole thing. And then the last thing, I use this. This is a little applicator, and it's just another t-shirt that I took a bunch of t-shirts, kind of well, not a bunch, but a little bit, watered it up, put this t-shirt around it, put some string around it, and it's a little applicator. And so I'm going to do the same thing that I've done the last couple times. I did it with a 3M pad, I did it with this. Now I'm doing it with just wax, and I'm going in here and I'm applying more wax. It's really light, you know, I just want to get it on there. It is filling in micro fissures and scratches and things that are in there from the finishing process, but I'm just trying to do that to build up this wax. Now, this wax is car wax, right? It is meant to harden and be durable. And so that's what I'm adding to the external of this. Now, it's not a problem that I only have wax on the outside and not wax on the inside, because the sealer, remember, was our polyurethane. So it's sealed same as the inside and the outside. This is more for sheen and touch. So I'm not gonna have any warping or anything like that caused by having the wax on the outside and not the inside, because I did do the same amount of applications to the inside of the polyurethane. So anyway, I just need to continue on with this, and I'm not going to bore you with that. I can do this last step as many times as I want. Yes, you can, even though it's not a high sheen finish, the polyurethane. You can still get this thing to look like a mirror if you want, just by adding wax and buffing it out. If you want that kind of finish, I think you would go in a different direction. I wouldn't do this. I'm just saying you can. It wouldn't be all that smart. But yeah, that's it. So I do one more coat, 2 more coats maybe, and then it's going to be putting the diorama back in. And I'm super excited about it because I can do the final lighting. That's one of the big things about this. I have lighting, and I'll get this out of the way. I have lighting all throughout my diorama, and to have that lighting and have it so it can be revealed during the game, because it's meant to be playing a D&D campaign in it. I want to be able to hide the wires. I don't want to see them. I want it to be a really nice experience all the way around the diorama, all the way around this. I have a plan to get some little casters for this so that the whole thing will turn, not just the inside, but the whole thing will be able to turn on a tabletop. And that, I think, will finish this thing out and make it really fun and playable. But without a good sturdy base like this thing, I mean, it's sturdy, it's not going anywhere by itself, but it doesn't look all that great. This makes it much more presentable, and I think you can actually really have a lot of fun playing a game with your friends. So anyway, I'm going to continue on with that. If you have any questions, please do ask. I love doing this stuff, and I love talking about it. And if you have any other questions about the shop or model building or diorama building or whatever, ask away. I'd love to really answer it for you. So, or give my opinion. I don't have the answers on everything, but I've been doing this for a fair amount of times, and so I got some good experience I can share. I'll see ya.